All right, I'm going to show you how to assemble your blocks, how to use some of the assembly tools to assemble your blocks within your construction block models here. And so the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to change the color of your block in case you want to do that. So I have all these bodies over here. Bodies are solids within Fusion 360. So if I go ahead and right click on, in this case, body 4, which is my triangle body, if I go ahead and right click on that and I click appearance, it'll bring up the appearance panel for me to look at. I can then come into that appearance panel and I can click different materials. In this case, I'm clicking on paint. If I wanted the body 4, the triangle, to be blue, I could simply drag that over to body 4 and it will make that blue for you. And so you can do that if you'd like to color your blocks to make them the correct color. That's how you change the appearance. All right, the first thing we have to know about how to assemble different parts into an assembly within Fusion 360 is we have to change our models from bodies, from solid bodies, into components. And so if I come over here to body 3 and I'm finished with that body, I can then go ahead and click on that, right click on that and say create components from a body, and then it will turn that body into a component. And so we're going to want to do that for all of your block bodies. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ground one of my components. And so whatever the main part is of what you're going to be creating, when you assemble parts, you're going to want to assemble components, you're going to want to ground that first part. So in my case, I'm going to use this green block as the ground. And so I'll go ahead and right click on it over here, component 3, and I'll say ground. And then I'm going to say just continue with that. And what that does now is I cannot move that body around. So if you see, or that component around, see, I can move all these other components around still. I've grounded the green one so I can't move it. And so what that does, it's going to allow me to apply assembly joints to these different components to assemble them to that green component. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on under the assemble drop-down joint. And we are going to, there's many different types of joints. For this, we're going to mainly stick with the rigid joint because we're going to pretend that these blocks are going to be rigidly stuck together. So that's the first option. It's the default. I then can come around and select different points on my part. And so if I want this yellow block to fit on top of that green block, I can come in here, and if I click the center of that yellow block, notice how I have that blue line. If I click the center of this green block, it's going to apply that, put those two centers together. So notice that's what it's done. I can rotate it around. I can be very specific about the angle that I want. So if I want it to be 90 degrees, I can do that. Notice how it is centered on the block though, all right? So maybe I don't want it centered on the block. Maybe I want that joint to be so it's lined up in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that rigid joint. I'll click assemble again. I'll click joint, and this time I'm going to select this back line. Notice that when I select it, I can either pick, it's selecting this bottom plane or this back plane. And so when I select it, that's very important. If I select the back plane and then I come over here and I select the top plane of my green block on this part, notice what happens. When I do that, it puts those 2 points together, which is not necessarily what I want for my joint. And so this time I'm going to make sure I have the bottom plane selected, and on this part, the bottom plane selected. And look what it does now. It puts it those bottom planes together. And then I can go ahead and rotate it 0 degrees or 180 degrees if that's what I want, and then have my joint fixed exactly how I want it. And so you can see that it's lined up now the way I want it. And so what you're going to do is assemble your blocks in the way that you want. If you have a joint that you don't want, you can click on it on your screen, or you can come up here to the joints in your drop down of your browser, and you can click on it and delete it or edit it here. And you can also turn on and off the visibility of that joint, so you don't have to look at the little joint icon on your model.